Hello, Guten Tag und Grüß Gott. Today is Saturday, August the 25th, 2023. Another fine sunny day in Southern California. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, more tragedy has happened. In Southern California, in particular, a, um, a gun battle happened at what we call the Cook's Corner in Orange County. And Cook's Corner is it used to be kind of a biker bar. And it's kind of out in the way in, southern and the south part of Orange County. And it's really a good place. It's a bar that has good food, and it's frequented by bikers, but it's no longer a biker bar because people just go there for lunch or for dinner and so forth. And, it's more of a family place. And this guy, an ex-policeman, actually a retired policeman, came in looking for his divorced wife and shot her, and shot her friend, and then started shooting around the bar. And somebody actually came after him, with a handgun, drew a handgun. And being that it is Orange County and the biker bar, so to speak, and I'm just saying that in quote because that's what it used to be, and it still kind of is. So take that as you will. I expected there'd be lots of people with carry permits and so forth. Well, anyway, one guy did, and he had a bead on him, but he decided not to pull the trigger. So when he stepped outside, that was like 2 minutes from when the first shots rang out. Evidently, 2 minutes later, here was the police, and they went and shot him. So there are 3 people dead, and I think there's some wounded also at the biker bar. So I don't know why we always have to lead with tragedy, but there's more tragedy, and I'm not so sure, just what the impact of that is. But the leader of the Wagner group is apparently dead. And that's the reason I say apparently, because this is the official word from Russia, that the guy died in a plane crash. And that's the guy, Prigozhin. And here it is. I'm going to hold that up so you can see the picture in the Wall Street Journal. And there is his airplane going up in flames. So the weird thing is, this guy was going with about 10 of his comrades. Prigozhin was going in an airplane from someplace to someplace. And as he came near St. Petersburg, a wing fell off. Okay. Now, how often have you heard of a wing falling off an airplane? We've had all kinds of things, engine falling off, that kind of thing. But a wing fell off, and there's a video of the plane coming down. So if he was on it, and the reason I'm kind of iffy about this, because news out of Russia is kind of tentative. You kind of have to give it some time and let it marinate, because you just never know what the Russians consider as truth. So, of course, the speculation was right away, that Putin did him in. And yeah, so that was the speculation. Let me see whether this video is actually on, and I believe it is. Okay. Well, yeah, what's happening is that, of course, this guy was heading for Moscow, for a potential coup. Then he changed his mind, and when he changed his mind and he couldn't get a job done, well, that basically, as far as I was concerned, that signed his death sentence, because he didn't make it. Now, I don't know what he would have done in Moscow, because he doesn't have the Secret Service, and all those bad actors, on their side. But, when Biden was asked about that, incident, he says, "Well, I'm not surprised." I guess is anybody surprised, that the guy had to die after he challenged Putin? So, there's this big article in the Wall Street Journal about the Godfather in the Kremlin. And so, what they're saying here is that Putin is basically running the government as if it was some sort of a mafia or crime organization. So people that disagree with him, they kind of disappear, and he keeps his circle tight. And this kind of thing is not unfamiliar to the Russians because Stalin did pretty much the same thing. They say that you could always tell, what a guy's status was in the government with Stalin, by when they had some sort of an event, where he stood, where he had to line up. So, if you were at the end of the row, probably the next time you didn't show up because there was probably no room for you, So, anyway, yeah, Russian politics, it's really something, and, Putin just embodies that. So, of course, they're still chasing Trump. So now he's got all kinds of indictments, and there is a really cool photograph of him that I guess I want to show, because he actually had a mugshot, and this is Trump's mugshot. I guess that needs to be memorialized. Wow. So he was released on bail. Of course, what are they going to do? I mean, you can't really make a case that Trump is going to disappear and not going to be found, or Giuliani, because about 18 of his closest friends were also indicted in Georgia, and I don't know exactly what the indictment is all about, but it's got something to do with election fraud, and evidently he was trying to turn over the election in Georgia somehow, and or coerce people to not certify certain votes and so forth. Now, talk about election fraud, I mean, Jesus, yeah. Election fraud is just, I think it's ubiquitous, and I think it's getting more so. And, if the Democrats are really good at it, it's possible that they eke out a majority, whenever there's an election somewhere that's important. And, yeah. So I remember Hillary was always talking about, when the Republicans and the Newt Gingrich Congress was in power, she was talking about the terrorism or the tyranny of the majority. And I guess that's really true. Is that when you have a majority, you could terrorize the public because they put you in and now you have power. And to some extent, that's actually evident in California. I mean, they have had a supermajority now for a few decades, and look at what's happening. The city's turning into shitholes and so forth. But don't let me get down that path because it really pisses me off. Since I'm now 84 years old, and I remember a good country and a country that's kind of, in a way, kind of in decline. But hey, there's a lot of hope. We have a space program. We can get off of this planet maybe, and as a matter of fact, the Chinese just landed an unmanned mission on Mars, which is great. And the Indians have landed on one of the poles, the north or south pole of the moon. Or at least, and if the South Pole is the one on what we call the dark side, of course, it's got that captured rotation. There's no dark side, really, because, the sun sees everything as it rotates around the Earth, except to us, there is a dark side, of course. Anyway, just briefly getting back on the Wagner Group, so here was this Wagner Group that was a paramilitary organization within Russia, and it was actually financed by Russia, but it was a private organization, and evidently they've got a big foothold in Africa, and they're supporting some of the dictators in Africa, the people that have kind of a tentative grip on power, and the Wagner Group is helping them stay in power, and for that they're getting to exploit their resources and so forth. But these private military groups, that have the government nod and wink. They're actually not that unusual, because I want to point to at least one of them, and maybe that's happened throughout the centuries, and I just can't think of them right now. But one of them was the East India Company for Britain. They had the same kind of power as the Wagners did. They had their own laws. They could execute their own criminals, and they just basically ran, roughshod over the Indians, East Indians, and and so the Brits could always kind of say, well, it was the East India Company, if something really bad happened. And the same thing with the Wagner Group. I know Putin called them patriots, but hey, the Wagner Group, created this entire outfit, for the Ukraine, out of criminals. This Prigozhin went around the jails and said, hey, when I come and join, your sentence will be commuted. Now, you're probably going to die, but if you don't die, you can have a great life afterwards, because, you don't have to go back to jail. And that's an incentive for a lot of bad people. And so a lot of bad things happened in the Ukraine, I'm sure. But, I didn't want to talk so much about the politics of the day, because it usually depresses me. So let me talk about something really light. And I'm not so sure that is light, but let's talk about bread. I've given a lecture on, oh man, I really didn't want to say that. I'm not going to edit it out. But I try not to school anybody. I'm just trying to memorialize, what's happening right now, because somebody 50 or 100 years from now may look at these things and say, well, no shit. Boy, were they stupid or something. Or maybe they were really smart. Who knows? Depends in which way the humanity, the intelligence of humanity is going. So what I want to talk about is bread. I've discovered something really kind of interesting. So I went shopping, and I shopped for different kinds of breads. And I'm only going to be in Southern California for, a week or so. So I don't know how I'm going to eat all this bread, before. But, maybe there's room in the freezer or something. So let's see what I got here. First of all, I went shopping at a place called Old World. And so I bought what is called, and I'm going to hold this up. This is called Kommissbrot. This German Kommissbrot. And the reason I like this is probably my staple. The reason I like this a lot is because it's a rye bread, and it tastes just like the bread that I ate when I was at home in Germany as a kid. Okay, so this is Kommissbrot. Okay, so I pick up a loaf of this, maybe once a month or something like this, and I freeze some of it, and I keep it and love it and call it George now. Anyway, I like that bread. So I picked that up, and then I picked up what they call a Kaiser roll. Okay, that's so German. It's a Kaiser roll. That's a pretty good piece of bread, but it's white bread, it's not that heavy rye. So this, a Kaiser roll, when I was a kid, that was upscale eating. Okay, if the whiter the bread, the more expensive it was. And of course, in Germany at the time, less nutritious, because in America, they woke up to the fact, that people are not getting their nutrients, and so they created Wonder Bread. And they packed it with all kinds of vitamins. So you're getting your vitamin pills in Wonder Bread. And it made a difference. It made a healthy country. People grew tall. Anyway, so there's the Kaiser roll. And then, the Germans also, you might think, oh, that is just a, some sort of a Subway sandwich, or, it's we'd call it a roll, But in Germany, these are known as Brötchen. And Brötchen just means, it's a diminutive form of the word bread, so it's Brötchen. But we also called it Semmeln, and that's probably more of an Eastern German saying or use of the word for that Brötchen, because my parents used to call that Semmeln, and some of them are actually round, but these are, you can see that they're like a little small piece of bread, okay? So I guess you could make a Subway sandwich out of this. So. Okay. So where are we with this? Okay, so you notice that there is something, there is something in common about all these things that I showed you so far. And that is that they are, bread, okay? So then suddenly this came up, okay? Okay. So look at that, So this got a hole in it. So this actually originated with the Jewish community in Germany and Eastern Europe. And they call it a bagel, okay? So here's the thing, is all these breads, they don't have a hole in it, and this has a hole in it. And, you got to wonder, what went through the baker's mind, saying, hey, why do we have to have solid bread? Why not put a hole in it and we can save some bread? Not only that, doesn't that look cool? And, well, first of all, we can charge the same thing for it as, let's say a Kaiser roll, right? And we'll save the middle, okay? And so, so a bagel came into being, and bagel is basically a Yiddish word, which means to bend. It's something bend, because it's actually a noun. Bagel is a noun. So they took the word benden, which means to bend, and created this noun called bagel. So this is very clever, and you have to hand it to him to think about this, I can just imagine a little Jewish baker, coming up with this, and maybe 100 years ago or so. Definitely 100 years ago, because I'm damn near 100 years ago. And these things were in existence before then. So what happened is, I can just imagine somebody saying, we can make some money of this, and then, maybe they can cut it in half, and put some cream cheese on it and things like that, So actually, I have to say, how cleverly this thing happened, because it evolved. And, I'm actually a fan of bagels, and I want to show you the bagel that I bought for today's lunch. I don't know whether I can show it to you, but man, is that a loaded bagel. So look at that. So let's add some salmon and and tomatoes and things. And now we can charge, I don't know, $10 for it, So I'm not surprised that the bagel originated in the Jewish community, because I can see there was a savings in dough, and you can get a little bit more. And, they're very smart people, as a matter of fact, the Hasidim, among the smartest Jewish religious community in the world, I guess, and so if you're looking for really smart people, you find the Hasidim being right up on top. Of course, you would think that they are on top because, hey, they deal in diamonds, and of course the Rothschilds, well, they deal in everything, and they can still have $1 trillion wedding, So one of the things, that one of the black comedians said, Hollywood comedian, I can't remember his name right now, but he says, the one thing that you don't want to say in Hollywood is the phrase you never want to utter is the Jews, okay? Because that can get you into instant trouble, you know. And it's funny, you know, and I may be sounding like an anti-Semite and so forth, but you know, I'm really not, because my 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 father had my parents had Jewish friends, you know, and the Jews and Germans in Poland, they got along very well. They did business together. I have Jewish friends, and so if there's a problem with the Jews, you know, you know, from what I can tell, you know, is they're bringing it on themselves, you know, and I'm not talking about the Holocaust, you know, can't blame the Jews for the Holocaust. But, you know, if you know anything about the Torah or the Bible, you know, just read that, and, you know, it'll verify pretty much what I say, you know, is that, you know, they're the good times, they're not so good times, you know, and they're always caused by the people, you know. You know, they fall into apostasy, and then, you know, God punishes them and so forth. But anyway, smart people developed the bagel. So here's, you know, of course, the Germans, they looked at this bagel and they said, huh, maybe we can do one better. And there you are. They did the pretzel. And that's pretty hard to cut, you know, and put a schmear on it, you know. So, you know, which is smarter, this or that? But you know, the pretzel actually preceded the bagel by far, because in Germany there are homes with that used to be bakeries, and they're about 600 years old or so, and they have a pretzel, you know, a stone pretzel on top, you know, to show I'm a baker. So I want to just show you one more thing. And this little delicacy is actually called a Berliner. So what did the Germans do? They thought, well, you know, if we have to put a hole into bakeries, into baked goods, well, let's fill them with something, you know. And now they can charge even more. So it's all about business, you know, that's going on. Let's see what else we got. Well, you know, the Italian and the French, they didn't tumble to any of that, because, hey, the ciabatta rolls, they have no holes in them, you know. And the French, you know, of course, they got their croissants, you know. So, you know, the croissants, and of course they call it a croissant, you know, and there's that big argument, who invented the croissant, the Hungarians or the French, you know. The croissants, you know, have that legend behind them that they were invented because the Turks, the Hungarians, you know, saw the Turks coming and warned Vienna, you know, to batten down the walls and doors, and, you know, because the Turks are coming. And as a commemoration of that early warning, they baked those, and the French saying, no, we have the croissant, you know, that was even before, you know, but there's something beguiling, you know, because the crescent moon is kind of a Muslim, Turkish kind of emblem, and the croissant kind of resembles that. Anyway, so what else we got about bread? Well, just one more thing. Just one more thing. You know, let's talk about the Brits. Look at that. Those clever Brits. You ever tried to put butter and jam on a bagel and things, and stuff runs all over? But look at that. Look at that, okay? So the Brits, what did they do? They made crumpets. And they put little holes in there, you know, that soak up the butter and the jam. Clever, these Brits. Well, that's pretty much the story of bread that I wanted to give you, and I think I'm going to enjoy that. Probably start with that Berliner. You know, when Kennedy gave his speech at the wall, you know, in Berlin, and he said in German, "Ich bin ein Berliner." You know, the people in Germany kind of snickered, because this is a Berliner, you know. So my family, you know, my mom used to make these, you know, she fried them in a deep fryer, and, you know, filled them with raspberry and strawberry jelly, you know, just like this. This happens to be plum jelly, you know, that is in there. Anyway, I think that's enough for this video because, I see that uh, we are at, I don't know what we are, but we are. And I wanted to close this video, was just talking about it. I always close it that we must infect the universe with us. And that's kind of a noble concept, but I don't know, do we deserve to infect the universe with us? And would that be a really good thing? I'm not so sure, what trajectory we're on. Once we've um, managed the capability of destroying humanity on Earth, which we do have the capability, I mean, the doomsday clock tells us it's, I think, less than 3 minutes to doomsday. So it can happen. I'm not so sure that we're the right people or the right entity to infect the universe, but we'll see. Maybe. Clearly, we have to get off this planet if we're going to have life beyond what can happen here. And at the moment, with climate change and so forth, it's going to be a little more difficult to live here, and we have to find other ways, and I'm sure we'll find ways to live here, but will we find ways to live together? Who knows? So I think I'm just going to skip that particular admonition, that we must infect the universe with us, and you won't hear me say that anymore because I know a degree of uncertainty overcame me. In any case, I want to wish you farewell, Servus, goodbye, und auf Wiedersehen, until next time.